Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Bass & Associates, First Data Resources, and by Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider This with Carol Schrader, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Durham Plaza outside the Milo Vale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello, welcome to Consider This. It's a beautiful fall day here at UNO, and we have a guest that's generated a lot of interest, Dr. Jeffrey Wotkin. First, let me say he is no longer hiding out. The glasses are because it's a little bright out here. Now, if you don't know who he is, you might recognize his face. When I saw him in the KFAB radio studios this morning, I recognized his face immediately. I go back, rewind the tape to 60 Minutes. I'm sitting on a Sunday night just enjoying myself, watching one of my favorite TV shows, and this man is talking about the tobacco industry, and he looks a little bit tense. He's not nearly as tense today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Carol.
You are now known as one of really a pair of whistleblowers. I mean, you and is it Merrill Williams?
Merrill Williams
should have your pictures in the dictionary next to whistleblowers, because
I don't know if I like that word whistleblower, but that's
well,
all right.
it means something, and what it means is that something that should be out has come out thanks to a person, and tobacco and the industry was the area of whistleblowing. Now, let's go back.
To where? I mean, there's a lot of...
Well, let's go back. You're a biochemist.
Biochemist by
with
training.
A wonderful vitae, published research, who went to Brown & Williamson to...
Well, I spent the better part of 6 months with senior executives of both Brown & Williamson and in BAT, their parent company, discussing using my 25 years of experience and my medical scientific knowledge to make a safer cigarette. And so my belief of going there was to be able to develop a safer cigarette, knowing that people will continue to smoke no matter what. I mean, and I expected to use my talents that traditionally been directed at improving health, saving lives, to apply that same technology and approach to a product when used as intended kills. And that was what I did, and why I did it. I mean, I also was paid well. I mean, I also had an opportunity to get some personal benefits in terms of my moving my family out of New York City area. I mean, there was a lot of things.
You felt it was a good career choice for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
And then you suddenly found yourself without a job.
Well, I mean, I spent 4 years there.
Right.
Okay? And there were a lot of events during that 4 years that really
led you to believe you weren't going to do what you thought you were going to do?
And I had lots of pause for thought. I mean, I saw things that bothered me from a business practice and an ethical practice that just I had never seen before. Lawyers vetting documents, changing words, documents so it wouldn't create controversy if it was discovered in litigation.
Covering their tracks, in essence, or thinking they were.
Well, thinking they were, and the key way of protecting that has always been in litigation and discovery process. So if you don't have a document that's contentious and says what you're really thinking, and you edit or vet these documents, you have the opportunity to have only one image.
Yeah,
and
cleaning up the paper trail.
Clean the paper trail up. And it actually was called Deadwood Files, to be exact.
Deadwood Files?
Deadwood Files.
That was their name for it?
Well, that was what they called some of the files in the early 60s and 70s. These are the papers that came out, which are referred to as the Merrill Williams papers, but were published by San Francisco Dr. Stanton Glantz. I mean, he took the papers and analyzed them and published them in JAMA, but those papers clearly say that there was a duplicity.
Absolutely.
A duplicity of what the company said outwardly to the public versus what they clearly knew as a mantra within the company, that they were in a nicotine delivery business. They clearly knew that they didn't hook them young.
They even used terms like nicotine delivery. When I first heard that, when this whole thing started to sort of unravel, the 60 Minutes interview, Merrill Williams, the documents that came out, and then everything started to move kind of quickly. I mean, it may have seemed slow to you at the time, but in terms of an institution that was, a couple hundred plus years old, nicotine delivery system. I mean, it just hit me over the head. I mean, I guess I knew that, but the fact that those words were used.
I mean, the mantra is we're in the nicotine delivery business and TAR's the negative baggage. I mean, that's the words. I mean, the words of we have to hook them young, we hook them for life. And that referred to kids, not knowing that 80% of people who start smoking and are smoking today started well before the age of 18, which is, I believe, the legal age here.
We should mention, I'll just take a little time out, that you are here at UNO at the behest of the HYPER Department, Health,
Yes.
Physical Education, and Recreation, who is working with the help of a federal grant to help with smoking cessation research and how people can stop smoking and getting the word out in the Omaha community. And also because, I mean, not because of it, but also you're kind of a hot number right now. I mean, there's going to be a movie out in about 3 weeks.
November 5th.
With Al Pacino. I mean, that, there's no small name. And a couple of other well-known stars called The Insider that will sort of document this odyssey you were on, this
That's a good word
nightmare
for
odyssey. And so...
Well,
and
it wasn't
then,
all nightmarish. I mean, there are some...
There's some very self-satisfying, some
Yeah,
very...
there was some joy in adversity.
But there were, but I think that the suspense is not the right word. The
tension, the menace.
The tension.
Menace.
Yeah, menace is a good word. You were using some good words. But anyway, so and plus we have almost not a day goes by that something's coming out in the paper about the whole tobacco industry. Just yesterday, the Florida case.
That was today, I think. I mean, the Florida today. Yeah. I mean,
the ruling came out that.
Well, the Court of Appeals reversed their early decision to separate out all the participants in a class action.
A Florida case.
In Florida, what they did is they now ruled to put it all back together.
Yeah, it can be doled out in a lump sum.
Rather than
the tobacco
individual.
company would have liked to said you have to do it to this and this and this, which would have tied up.
Well, we just protracted it out for umpteen hundred years.
That'd be cool for them.
Well, that's the way they've traditionally worked.
And then last week, Philip Morris came out, and I was telling you, I was sitting in front of a computer console in the newsroom, and it said, Philip Morris is admitting that tobacco is addictive.
Well, they don't quite say it.
Well, that they are dealing with a health product that deals with health risks and may be addictive.
And they recognize the consensus. Well, to me, that's weasel wording. I mean, if they truly accept the body of scientific knowledge that they have continued to point to as not reliable, there is no clear indication, and accept that, and then do something about it. The second thing is they accept the consensus that nicotine is addictive. Well, are they now going to accept FDA regulation?
Which is another issue that will hit the headlines soon when the Supreme Court decides if the FDA can do what it does with other drugs, and that's have some regulatory authority over it.
I mean, that's going to be interesting to see what happens to that. The Supreme Court's going to hear that, whether the FDA has jurisdiction to regulate tobacco products as a drug. But they've clearly said this is a drug delivery device. This is a nicotine delivery device. What's the difference between nicotine versus an antibiotic or another drug?
Well, it certainly alters physiological things in your body.
It is clearly something.
And it is addictive.
It is addictive. It's more addictive, as many people have shown it, than cocaine. It leads to a horrific life. I mean, it starts as a pediatric disease. It transcends adolescence into adulthood, and it causes a horrific
toll.
Not only
the people, their families,
feels
society,
money,
certainly
society,
financially.
and it's not a nice, dignified way to go.
Now we're going to hop back.
Uh-oh.
I kind of explained why you're here and everything, but we're going to hop back to the time, which will be portrayed in the movie, where the menace, as you described it, not clear if it's one company or several companies were following you, keeping tabs on you.
Well,
paint a picture.
Well, it's not a picture, it is actual fact, so I'll give you the facts. Facts were that Brown & Williamson hired a ex-FBI agent and hired at least 20 law firms and private investigation firms to investigate every facet of my life, every facet, with the intention of using what they had to try to discredit me and
bring you down.
Bring me down. And I think, the reason why is that they were scared of the truth. And this is a way of intimidation. And I mean, their intimidation that is portrayed in the movie, but was real, they intimidated CBS. They intimidated CBS by threatening them with a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit if they aired the program with me in that interview for what's a legal concept called tortious interference. Somewhat specious, but that's what they want to do. And that caused the people at CBS corporate to feel very uncomfortable during an acquisition by Westinghouse.
That's right.
And during an exchange of, as you know, Tish owns Lorillard, which are cigarette products that were being license changed between two parties. And for journalism, it probably was not a high moment. But you also have to take the perspective they were dealing with. Philip Morris and ABC had just gone through a $10 billion litigation in which ABC had to apologize to Philip Morris.
I remember that.
And I was the expert in that case. And I was somewhat surprised with that outcome, given what I had seen in the Philip Morris documents. But that was the environment.
Yeah.
And so cast in that environment, they preyed on it. In a way, is praise with an E. They preyed on that environment of intimidation. And the intimidation was, how do we prevent, and who can we prevent, and is it a big corporation or an individual from getting the truth out?
Now, during all this, you went through some personal turmoil. Your marriage.
Yep.
There's a lot of pressure on a marriage. I mean, marriages are vulnerable, even the best of them. And then you had children.
Mm-hmm.
And were you ever at any point really worried for their safety?
I can tell you, I took the death threats, which were 3 of them in total, 2 in April of '94, then 1 in '96. They clearly were very real. I mean, they were real.
They were certainly meant to make you believe they were.
Yeah.
They were
and
real.
who it was, I don't know. Nobody knows, including the FBI. But I mean, to get something like that is alarming. And it wasn't directed to me. It was directed because of what I was doing to go at a root level in a parent, their children.
I read a Tom Clancy novel recently, and I can't even remember the plot because I read so many that they all,
Yeah.
you know how they all get mished together. But basically, since he doesn't have the demon Russian communists to worry about as much, he does a lot of corporations and
Yep.
their power. And it makes for almost a great thing. Brown and Williamson with a secret facility growing value-added tobacco.
Oh, enriched nicotine.
I'm talking from their perspective, value added.
Oh.
Enriched nicotine tobacco and secretly bringing in and they knew you knew that or were onto that and had that information and that was one of the big deals.
Well, there were many elements.
But that was one that showed clear intent.
Yes.
Clear intent.
I mean, I think the Leaf Blenders Manual, it clearly says we need to manage the delivery of nicotine. We use these chemicals to boost the impact. I mean, they had code words like Zephyr. They used the word Zephyr. Why? Because they didn't want to use the word cancer.
They used Zephyr?
The word Zephyr in their documents became a code word for cancer.
And when I think of a Zephyr itself is a fast, strong wind.
Yes, it is.
That's kind of ironic.
That's what it is. Exactly. That was their code word for cancer. The code word for ammonia chemistry was root technology, ROOT technology. Everything had a code word. And that code word, because if a document was picked up and they say, we need to understand Zephyr better, somebody look at it and says, what is Zephyr? What is root technology? And there was a duplicity of language, even within the company.
Wow. And everybody knew this? Or not everybody?
I wouldn't say everybody knew it. I mean,
but enough people knew it to at least know it.
I mean, clearly on the senior level, people knew that. I mean, there are silos of information that people on the bench level wouldn't be able to know all of it. My vantage point was I shouldn't say I know all of it, but
you knew more than enough.
I knew who all the connecting. I was able to connect a lot of dots. Okay, and that's what I had. It was the dots.
All right, so where are we now with big tobacco? Obviously, they're, I use the term kind of grandiose, bringing down big tobacco. They certainly are they're certainly on the defensive, big time.
Well,
but the companies are still making a lot of money, and they're peddling the stuff overseas. I mean, hey, maybe we shouldn't worry about the United States. We've got markets all over the world.
Yeah, well, I think you raised a lot of points. And number one, are they on the defensive? Not quite yet. I mean, I think there are more things to be done. I mean, they have to act much more corporately responsible, particularly with a product that kills as many people. Okay, now that they admit it. We also have to realize that at the same time, they lose profits here, dollars, that they're going to have to find some way to offset that. And that means they're going to have to go to third world countries and peddle the product.
They already
again.
are.
Yeah, and they're going to do it more. And their documents clearly say that, gee whiz, we're going to lose here. Let's go get them there. And these are not my words. I mean, Project Bastilian clearly says what we lose here, we have to go to third world countries and get. So they clearly identified it.
They don't have enough problems in third world countries.
Well, yeah, they're going to launch this on them. And I mean, this is a worldwide issue. This is just not a U.S. issue. This is a worldwide epidemic, and it needs to be stemmed.
What happens now? We've got, all the work you did and others has led to huge agreement settlement with the states that sued, with the attorneys general from 22 states, something, I don't know.
No, all the states are settled.
Okay, all the states are settled. Okay, there's vast amounts of money, or what seems like to me, vast amounts of money, maybe not to the tobacco companies, going to head into the states. The politics, I mean, forget just the corporate, this deception, this insidious tangled web they've woven.
Yep.
Just the politics now of what happens with tobacco. It's inculcated in our culture. It's part of a mainstay in the entire, the states that grow it. Plus, it's a political football.
Well, again, a lot of issues. I mean, the farmers have not been the culprits here.
No, they are not.
They're
the
not,
culprits.
and they have been probably taken also advantage of. But there's been some foreshadowing of this coming.
Yeah, but you can't find a crop, and I'll tell you, living in an agriculture state, you can't find a crop that can come anywhere near to replacing.
No way.
That.
No way. And that's threatening to them. But at the same time, the tobacco industry is telling the farmers that they're going to buy their tobacco. They're importing from overseas cheaper tobacco, and not always being upfront with them. So they've been manipulating both sides of the fence. But let's get back to what's called the Master Settlement Agreement. 4 states are outside that settlement agreement. All the other states have signed on.
They kind of swung their own deal.
Yeah, Mississippi, Texas, Florida, and then Minnesota. They have a separate deal, and there's a sort of most favored nation clause. And that was really kind of set in motion on June 20th of 1997. Which is basically when I got off the hook.
When they said we will not go after him anymore. That was part of the deal.
But the 39 attorney generals were willing to walk out the door on $368 billion.
They stood behind.
They stood behind me, and that was a high day, very high day, both emotionally and it just was the end of a long, tortuous.
I'm breathing easier now just hearing you talk about
tortuous process. I mean, they just wanted me quiet. But go back to.
Do you think they ever wanted you dead?
I mean, would corporate take that action? No.
No, not necessarily. But do you think they wished you dead, because that would be the only sure way to shut you up?
Well, they're clearly not going to shut me up now or before, and there's still lots to do. But yeah, I would imagine they would like to see me vaporize into
run into a
smoke.
bus accidentally or something.
But back to the settlement agreement, we have $248 billion to be paid out to the states over a 25-year period of time. That's a lot of money.
It's a huge amount of money. They must have so much.
And that's being paid by a price increase that the tobacco companies already realized.
Correct.
But the issue here is, what is it used for? And are the states going to exercise the appropriate level of responsibility in honoring the basis by which these suits were developed and the rationale of what they were to do to prevent in the future?
Now, the tack that they took as opposed to the FDA was, you've caused harm to our states because of this deception and what you've done, and we are paying for the medical care of people who you are killing.
Yes.
So theirs was a different tax. So when you talk about doing the right thing by that money, what is the right thing
Well,
with
the right
regard
thing-
to that
Yes.
approach?
That money that comes to the states now, which has been rather fortuitous in many ways, is or should be put back into healthcare, and in particularly tobacco healthcare. And I believe more in prevention than I do in cessation. I think you need to stop it before it starts, and it's a lot easier to treat it when you're doing it from a proactive basis rather than a reactive treatment basis. And what we need, those suits were about, is the 430,000 people that die from being addicted as a kid.
Most of them.
Yeah, most of them, 80% of them. And there's no question in people's mind that those are people that forced a burden on the states, and that part of what the Attorney General's, at least Attorney General Moore was after, and Butterworth and those, was to get those monies back and reinvest them in the future. Some states are doing it and some states are not. And that's an issue that we need to keep on addressing, because what are we after here? We're after using that money to prevent those deaths and reinvesting in the kids for the future.
You talked to what, 6th graders here, or you met some young kids?
6th
here?
graders, 7th graders, yes.
You know, these are the kids, and they follow their brothers and sisters who have been in DARE programs, you know, stay away from drugs, and they would include cigarettes in those curricula. And, you know, they've been acclimated to smoking is bad. I mean, you know, my kid, you know, would become nearly apoplectic around cigarettes.
Yep.
What more do we have to do? Where's the break? You know, it's like a pipe that's flowing water, but then suddenly it breaks. What happens where these kids start?
Well, they get caught in a lot of, I mean, let me give you some examples, and then I'll give you something that's been successful that needs to be modeled. First of all, girls believe, and have led to believe, that if they smoke a cigarette, they can stay thin.
Honey, I believed it.
And they made women, young girls, developing stage, adolescents, think that if
You
they
want to
had
look like Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, be thin. I mean, that puts a burden, a psychological burden during their, what I would call an exposed period of development. They preyed on it. That's one example. And they started conquering women in 1926. So today, lung cancer, and a different form of lung cancer, is the #1 killer of women, not breast cancer. They've succeeded in conquering women. When it came to the women's lib issues in the era, what do? Get sassy.
You've come
and
a long way, baby.
Get away from it, escape it.
I was on this campus going to school when that was, whole thing came through.
So yeah, look at the warning on their packaging. What is the warning? Hazardous to your health, low birth weight, all those. Then look at the ads, which glorify health, vitality, physical fitness, out in the outdoors.
So what they're saying is those two things can be compatible.
Yes, and they're not. So what do they really believe? And they've targeted. Okay, they target African Americans and Hispanics. How? They use the up in your face, uptown menthol cigarettes that were produced by, well, actually they're test marketed by RJR in Philadelphia, that actually turn the pack upside down, as many African Americans do. Okay, so they get right into the psychological behavioral science, and then they exploit it.
Okay, so
what have we seen history-wise? Well, let's look at California, let's look at Massachusetts, let's look at Oregon, and let's look at Florida. Okay, Massachusetts and California actually got a revenue base from taxing cigarettes, in which they turn around and put in what I would call quid pro quo type advertising. That is advertising that points out key truths, advertising that also in some way maybe demonizes it. Mm-hmm. Okay, or
plus there was a whole activist group, huge activist group in California that made it. I mean, you basically now can't smoke anywhere.
Yeah. So what they did is they advertised against the tobacco advertisements, and I think one of the most recent ones is on impotence. And I mean, it shows a very attractive lady going by, and what happens? The guy's cigarettes become flaccid. Impotence, and it's true. The American Urological Society.
Absolutely, those small blood vessels get even
plugged.
Heavy, yeah.
And so that's the truth. And they've done it, and when they have consistently had opposite advertising. This is an industry that spends $6 billion a year in advertising. Okay, they've been able to. Massachusetts did similar things. Okay, let's talk about Florida, which to me I was involved with early on through the insights of Governor Childs and Attorney General Butterworth, is taking some of that settled money and putting it back into education programs where kids educate kids. Effectively, in 1 year's period of time, this program realized a 19% reduction in teen smoking.
What do you mean, kids educating kids?
Kids, I would teach a child, 16 years old, a kid. They would go out and teach a 13-year-old or 15-year-old or another 16-year-old, and they would give them the truth, their truth campaign. SWAT program, Pride, in which they would go out and dance and use dance and with kids and get kids talking to other kids and making them the communicators of the message. They also had a negative advertising programs, which the industry hated. You know why? It demonized them. They compared the industry to Genghis Khan.
But again, all right, as we look ahead, if we do those things, raising the price of cigarettes in Nebraska we don't know about the impact, but kids are still buying cigarettes at $3 plus a pack, $3.50 a pack.
You look at what kids smoke. You look at them, they smoke the
Marlboro,
Camels, and Newport. What are the most highly advertised products the tobacco industry advertises? You can look at what most products kids start with. Marlboro,
so you're
Camels,
saying we've got to combat that advertising.
You've got to combat that advertising. I think in terms of prevention is raise the hurdle high. Deal with the higher price and cost to get them. Deal with better, not one thing alone, and link that with better compliance.
Okay, we've just got a minute. In 10 years, where do you see the tobacco companies in terms of their influence of peddling nicotine in this world?
Greatly diminished, I hope. That's my wish, that's my desire, and that's what I will do.
In the world?
In the world.
Not just here?
Not just here. This is a worldwide, but we need to start here and move on.
Are you able to breathe easier? Obviously, you're very comfortable, and you've created a legacy. You look happy. Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm having a great time now. At this time in my life, to be able to do what I want to do and how I'm doing it and feel good at the end of the day is a great feeling.
Well, I just can't wait till November to see a movie star portray you. Thank you very much,
Good.
Dr. Jeffrey Wigan. I like you the best, though.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Consider This.
Consider This with Carol Schrader is made possible with support from Bass & Associates and First Data Resources.